May 23rd, 2023 meeting of the Manchester Planning and Zoning Commission will now come to order. First item on the agenda is a review and approval of the April 18 minutes. Everyone should have a copy of the minutes in their package. If you take a few minutes to review them, see if there are any corrections or revisions that need to be made.
I make a motion to approve the minutes as written.
Motion has been made to approve the minutes. Do I have a second?
I second that.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Minutes are approved. Next item is zoning administrator report. Michelle, welcome back.
Thank you. As you know, the Patapsco annexation was approved, so that takes 45 days till that's effective. The Water Sewer Master Triennial Plan, which I double-checked today, does include this property to be in our priority water and priority sewer, and that is being approved very shortly. And we met with Equine Meadows, staff met, again, with the county and the engineers. They had a few comments that still calculations weren't working for the county. So we sat down with them, and I think that they have resolved them. They're supposed to resubmit again, but they said it'll take a couple weeks for review because they're not keeping them at the top of the pile.
Yeah.
But they are going to review the off-site independently and quicker so that he can get started on that. But they think they're pretty close. And I think that's all I have for you because I haven't been here very long.
Yeah, Alex has been pulling double duty. So, thank you, Michelle. Alex?
Good evening, Commission. So today I received the water outlook for the county from the county hydrologist. There was lower precipitation in March and May, and the county's been stating that there's a 1 to 2 inch deficit over the last 2 weeks, even with the April rains. So overall, things look good, but recently with lack of rain, even with the April heavy rains, there's been some good system recharge, but they're still looking at a slight deficit. The town's ENR upgrade is tentatively scheduled to go before the State Department of Public Works for approval on June 7th. If that is approved, we'll have CDM Smith in here on June 13th to present to the council and hopefully a engineering contract signed at the end of that meeting. The water line replacement's going very well and the project remains on schedule as the crews replace water lines and other appliances across the town. Something that kind of came up on our radar quickly, on June 14th, Antietam Broadband will be in town for a public information center at the Activities Building. The company will be providing future broadband services via fiber, and that is a very large-scale fiber project throughout the town. So we want to make sure all the residents have all the correct information as the crews start to do their work. Currently, they're waiting for our drilling permits, or I'm sorry, our excavation permit for some horizontal drilling, and they're also waiting for final approval from BG&E and the other utilities for use of their poles. The EPA PFAS regulation looks like it's on track to go into effect January 1st of 2024. At the public hearing that Rodney and I attended via Zoom, it was very clear. Environmental groups are very eager to have it put into effect right away. And then they want to go after wastewater on the other end of our realm to help reduce PFAS into the environment by having it excluded in biosolids and other effluent. The other side of the argument was that the EPA did not adequately represent the cost of PFAS mitigation, and that by incorporating this rule so quickly, it is going to distress smaller water systems and private water systems across the country. Mm-hmm. So we're currently enrolling in several different databases that we're required to based on the rule. And as I said, we look for it to go into effect January 1st, 2024. The Manchester East Stormwater Management Facility down by the sewage treatment plant is well on the way. The design for it has been contracted out by the county, and so I've seen the letter to move forward. So I believe CLSI has the design and that will take water from up around High Street and Maiden Lane and that area, as I said before, as well as up on this end of town and put it all into one large stormwater management facility. This is probably one of the last large projects, except for some reworking being done in Hampstead, that the county will be able to do and get credit for under, I hope I say it right, it's S20 permit. So that's good news for us. That's a nice facility. Other than that, that's all I have if you have any questions.
I don't. Thank you, Alex. Chris?
Thanks, Henry. On the May 9th council meeting, we did a few things. We did vote, as Michelle said, to approve the annexation of Patapsco 91 LLC. We voted to increase the water usage fee from $30 to $36 and the sewage fee from $40 to $49. And we did approve the 2024 budget.
Okay. County report. Andrew, how are you this evening?
I am well, Mr. Chair, and you?
I'm doing well, thank you. What do you have to share with the town tonight?
Just a couple items. Let's do this. All right. Good to see you all. For the Transportation Master Plan, work continues. This month, during May, the review focused from the Carroll County Planning and Zoning Commission on planned roadway projects, and I gave a brief discussion on emerging transportation trends. The annual report that you all approved a couple months ago, on May 10th, staff sent a draft to town staff. For all 8 municipalities in Carroll County, the report is scheduled for introduction to the County Planning and Zoning Commission on June 7th and for certification on June 20th, and due to Maryland Department of Planning on July 1st. For the Economic Development and Land Use Study, which is kicking off the first leg, as I mentioned before, of the county's upcoming general development plan or master plan. The second public workshop was held on April 27th. We also had follow-up workshops at the Carroll County budget hearing on May 9th and also up in Tawnytown on May 12th. And this was sort of an innovative workshop. It provided participants the opportunity to use play money, like Monopoly money, to decide on what industries they would like Carroll County to invest in moving forward. And also, participants were able to identify to what extent should the county prioritize economic development. And also, I just wanted to provide this. This is a magazine from the American Planning Association. Last month, I went up to the APA conference, and there's some really awesome stories in here for just planning in general. So, Michelle, I will give this to you. I brought home 2 copies with me, one for Manchester and one for Hampstead, so they will get their copy tomorrow. But that's all I have, Mr. Chair. If you have any questions, I'm here.
Thank you, Andrew. Any questions for Andrew? Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is request for preliminary approval of the Maverick Solar Project.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is John Shields. I'm with,
John, why don't you go up to the mic?
you bet.
Oh, before John presents, I just have to indicate that I recused myself from this project previously, and that remains in effect. So,
Very good. Thanks, everybody, for having us this evening. My name is John Shields. I'm with Pivot Energy. Pivot is the owner of Maverick One LLC, who's the applicant developer of the 2-megawatt AC solar project on Mr. Gary Lamott's property. Mr. Lamott is with me this evening as well. Really don't have a long presentation here to go over. Just kind of remind the board, a couple of months ago, we convened and really dug deep into the screening of this property from, I think, the north property line from some of the existing residential houses as well as some additional lots that were intended to be developed. Came to terms on a, I think, a 6-foot tall vinyl privacy fence that we've included and incorporated into the plan. Since that time, we've also made a couple of changes since we were here to address county comments regarding stormwater management. With those changes, a few weeks ago, we were granted conceptual approval from Carroll County, from their engineering and their planning department. And we're here this evening, Michelle, please correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we're here this evening to look for your board to also review and grant that preliminary approval of the plan at this time, of the site plan, I should say specifically, at this time. And then with that, we would resubmit back to the county with final plans. I think then we work with them to get our final approval, and we're back in front of this board one final time after we receive the final approval at the county level.
Correct.
I can answer some questions, but that's kind of where we are.
Board have any questions?
At this time.
Bob? Michelle, I don't think there's anything outstanding.
My only comment would be, just make sure that all the drawings are synced. Make sure there's no crisscrossing data between the different pages.
I'm sorry, I'm
Some of
sorry.
these pages are. Make sure that all the sheets are updated appropriately, that all the information is shown correctly on each sheet, even beyond the match lines. Some of the sheets are a little dated now compared to other sheets in the set, so.
Are you referring to the landscaping or the plans as a whole?
Plan set as a whole, as information is shown from sheet to sheet, it may not be the primary item on that sheet, but just make sure it's consistent so there's no questions moving forward as to what's supposed to be on there.
Okay, you got it. Thank you.
Well, if there are no other questions, floor is open for a motion.
I make a motion to grant preliminary approval for the Maverick One Solar Project.
I'll second it.
Okay, a motion's been made and been seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed? Motion carries.
Thanks for your time, everyone. Appreciate it.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a recent addition to the agenda, and this is for approval for ground-based solar panels at 2799 Burt Fowler Road.
Good evening. Hi, my name is Andrew Clark. I'm with Renewable Energy Corporation, and we're the contractor. And Mr. Schultz is the homeowner, and he's here with me, and also a coworker from Renewable Energy, okay? And we've worked with Michelle to provide everybody a copy of the map of the homeowner's yard and the distances from where the proposed site of the ground mount solar system for his house. It'd be 12 panels, 4.8 kilowatts, directly grid tied for his house. And we've provided, the layout that shows the exact length and width of the actual system. And then we also included some pictures to show some of the distances from, that are on the map, that, from from the back of the property towards the front, so you can see how far into the backyard it is. Also a picture to show how far it is. It's over 170 feet from where the solar system would be behind his house over to Washington Way.
When I look at this application, I see the height 7 feet 1 inch.
Correct.
That's the panel height.
Yes,
And then we
that's
have
the top of the
there's a
panels.
privacy fence.
Correct,
How tall is that privacy fence?
6 feet.
So the panels will stick
About a
above.
foot, yeah. And one of the pictures I included was a recent another job that we did to sort of show you what you would see on the back of the system, you know, and if you basically see that top, so from about the crossbar to that little bit of the top of the back of the panel.
Are these a matte finish solar panel or a glossy finish?
A matte finish, yeah.
Kind of hard, it's kind of hard to tell in the photo
Right,
which it is.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, the solar panel specifically is a Hanwha Q-Cell 400 watt panel, which is, you know, right now probably the most popular panel for residential over the last year.
It's not indicated on the drawing. How far away are the adjoining residents,
So
Lot 11 and Lot 13, who are going to be the most affected by any activity on this lot?
right, so I'm not sure which one is which. So lot 13 is, okay, yeah, so lot 13, the closest corner of the system would be 10 feet away from the privacy fence. And then, you know, and it's well behind his home and you know, and then his home is, of course, further on to his property. The lot 11, the home on it is out here close to Washington Way. And so the solar system is, there's a row of trees in Mr. Schultz's backyard, then the 6-foot privacy fence, and then that neighbor's house, you know, facing Washington Way away from the panel.
There's also a row of pine trees on the neighbor's lot on lot 11. And then he also has a large garage, which goes up, you know, about 10 feet away from the fence. So that garage is in between this and his house.
Have you reached out to your neighbors to discuss this proposal with them?
I have not, no.
So Michelle, at this point, there's been no posting requirement or anything. This has just come in for accessory structure.
Yes.
Okay.
And it's the first of its kind that we have had come across.
Do we know what the Carroll County guidelines say about these yet? If you look, it'll be considered on a case-by-case basis by planning and zoning. Commission may use Carroll County guidelines for these devices.
Yeah, agreed. I see you're calling it 6-foot offset to the septic field also. I believe the standard requirement is 10 foot.
So that's the Carroll County was what said 6 foot, and then it said 5 foot from the property line of the neighbor, so that's why we have it at 10 feet, so it's further away. But yes, the 6 foot matched the Carroll County requirement. I mean, then they've already seen the plans, and the only thing their reviewer came back to was that he needed to see that Manchester had
On their
reviewed it
site.
also.
Because it is going to be considered a structure at this point. It's not just a fence or other minor item. I mean,
Okay.
there's load associated with this. Does the property have room for a reserve field for septic? Or is this your second?
Okay, the 3 lines on there are the drain, perk area.
Mhm.
And we have this 6 feet away from the closest one. And they are 50 feet long. We had this inspected,
Excuse me.
at the time we bought it was December of '21. And
He needs to come up here so we can record this.
Mr. Schultz?
Mr. Schultz,
Come up
can
here.
you
Can you
come
please
up to
come
the
back?
microphone, please?
They're recording it, so it's probably not.
I can't hear it. Sorry.
my name is Jim Schultz, I'm the owner of the property. And we had that inspected, And they said that if there was a problem, they would go just the other direction and go towards Washington Way and put 3 more drain lines if needed. He opened this tank up and he said that's the way a tank should be. He said it's working great. So that's why we ended up buying the property, because he said some nice things about the septic system. We've never been on a septic system. I've always had city water and city sewer wherever I was. I'd never had this.
You're lucky some other properties haven't had that experience.
Well, I
But
can
want to make
imagine.
sure you've got a reserve area, because
Right.
if this does get approved, then your only alternative would be to hook up to the town. So, was not going to be a cheap solution, I'm sure.
Well, I asked the town about it, and they said there's no way that sewer's gonna be up there, so.
You'd have to put in a system to get out to the gravity line and, yeah.
But you wouldn't approve another design of that coming forward towards Washington?
It could be approved. But I wanted to make sure that you had enough room for a secondary prior to potentially approving something that would block you off from part of your yard.
Yeah, where this is, it wouldn't, if you wanted to enhance the septic system, the recommendation by that septic inspector was to go the other direction.
We'll cross that bridge when we get there.
And of course, this wasn't even discussed at that time, you know,
Right.
it wasn't even thought of. So, any other questions? Or-
Sir, what did the county allow you for total square footage? Because I think I'm looking at the regulation and the code of ordinances for Carroll, and it would be code 158.153 solar energy conversion facilities. And it talks about R residential and C conservation zoning districts that less than or equal to 1/2 acre. The maximum size of the ground-mounted system would be 120 square feet, no more than 120 square feet.
I have close to 3/4 acre, so it falls up
Yeah,
to
so
the
it's
next.
in the
category.
next group. it's
So
the-
you'd be right on it at 240, you would,
Yes.
that's the maximum, so
Right, and then that's right at what it
Zoomed
is.
R20, but
it says more than 1/2 acre to 1 acre of the lot. And it does not say anything about taking out room for the house, so he's actually just you're just like a hair over by inches. So, but, okay, thank you.
And their reviewer did look at that.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. So, Mr. Chair, according to the county code, as I said, 158.153, it has 4 designations, and then it gives a total square foot of what the maximum allowable size of the solar panel. It goes into less than or equal to 1/2 acre, more than 1/2 to 1 acre, as this gentleman is 240 square feet, the previous is 120, then more than 1 acre to 3 acres, which I can see would be our maximum size anywhere within the town limits, would be 480 square feet.
So he's right on the mark.
Yes, sir.
Does this privacy fence surround the entire area? I mean, I can see it's open on the side of the house.
Yeah, that
And
is.
it just shows one side. Does
Yeah.
it come across and over?
There's one coming the other way from property 13, and that's property 11 on the other side, but you're looking at that fence. It's property 11, I believe, right? No, that's 13. I had to reverse. That's lot 13 is the fence that you're looking at there.
Okay.
And then going over to Washington Way, there's another fence, which is also 6 foot high by that owner.
But it does, I'm sorry to ask this again, it goes this, over, and back. There's 3 sides to that fence. Here,
Well-
here, here. So here,
The
No,
fence
back.
is only 2 sides.
The corner lot.
This property right here. The white roof property. There's the fence he's talking about, there are the pine trees he's talking about. There's a garage off of Washington Way. This is the house that faces out to Burke Fowler.
so they'd be visible from these roads.
It would be right back in here. According to his drawing.
Okay.
Because they're 10 feet off of this property line.
Got That's very helpful, thank you. Okay. Thanks, Bob, that was helpful.
This property is the one you're talking about?
Yeah.
It would-
And I have to ask, because I think many people would agree that solar panels are an eyesore. And so they're already gonna be a foot above the fence. I'm just want to make sure I understand the view of these panels by the public, because they're just not fun to look at, pleasant to look at.
So the total square footage on this
Somewhere in
is
that
258, almost 259.
Oh, yeah, because I saw it's a few inches over on each.
It'd probably be like tucked in those trees. It's on the uphill north side if it's
Can I say something?
Yeah.
It was planned that there would, at the low end, would be 2 feet, or around 2 feet. And then at the top, we would be 7 feet, so we would be at 5 foot of rise. We could lower that. I'm not saying I have to have 2 feet on the low end. It could be 20 inches, or 18 inches, or even 16. But I want some little buffer there from my yard, you know, so we could lower that down if we wanted to. You know, if you thought that was advantageous to do that.
Why do you need that extra 9 and 4 inches? I'm just asking, because technically you do exceed the requirement. At 240 square feet, you're at 258
Right,
square
it's
feet.
based on the length of each panel. The panels are each 74 inches, and there's, you know, a gap in between them with a mid-clamp on them. And so 4 panels wide is what determined the length.
And this was also figured at 80% of what my energy consumption would be, is what this would be.
Any other questions? I'll just make a statement, it's not a question. You haven't done anything wrong, because it's not required by code, but I really wish you had spoken to the adjoining property owners just to see what they would have said about it, just so that wouldn't be surprised that all of a sudden you've got solar panels coming up in a yard, even though it's screened. That would have been my only suggestion to you. It'd been nice to have you come in and say, yeah, I spoke to my neighbors and they're fine.
Go for
But
it.
obviously, the provisions don't require that you do a notification, so you haven't done anything in violation of the provision, but just as a gesture, I think that might have been a nice thing to do, just to see what their opinion on it was, and work out if they had any issues, you could work it out with them in advance. But that's just a comment I have. So,
Took the words right out of my mouth.
Well, are you also, I don't know if staff is comfortable with approving something larger than even the county allows.
So, I mean, depending on how we read the code, one interpretation could be that it is the area of the actual photo cells.
yes, and there's a gap between.
So there's a frame, picture frame, and then there's a gap between the panels. So the total area may not be larger than,
Oh, the total area is definitely not going to be larger than 240 if you take the gap into account.
if you do, right?
Yes.
Now, the other way to interpret it would be
The entire structure.
the outer bounds.
Outer band of the structure.
Of the structure.
Well, it's at the discretion of the commission.
I think, Mr. Chair, just by the plain text, solar panel surface area maximum square footage, just by that, I can understand why Commissioner Graham is saying just the surface area
Yeah.
of that, so,
That's usually how it's interpreted.
yes.
So their coverage would be less than 240 square feet when you take the gap out. Any other questions for the gentleman?
I agree that while not required, the neighbors being knowledgeable would help. Otherwise, they'll be in here at a meeting.
Maybe, maybe not, but just, I would just think to do that. But like I said, it's not a requirement of the provisions, so. No other questions? The floor is open if someone wants to make a motion at this time.
I do have one more, just confirmatory state question. These are non-reflective panels, correct?
Correct, right. They have a backing on them that reflects that internally so that it's reflective into the backing of the panel.
With the orientation and the house that's down gradient from them is my one hesitation. I'll be honest with you. That's the one hesitation I have here.
I'm sorry, Bob, could you repeat that again, please? Your hesitation?
My hesitation is that if it is a reflective surface and the house that is downhill on Washington Way, is it going to become a nuisance, basically, to that adjoiner?
Good point. I know I seem to be harping on this fence. It's a pretty old-looking fence, and I would hate to think that some fence would come down sometime and not get replaced. That fence looks pretty old.
Okay. That fence was just put up within 2 years.
Really?
Just before I
Maybe,
moved
maybe
in.
it's just the photo, the coloration in the photo.
Well, it's weathering, yes. When I bought that property, that fence looked brand new, so it's weathered within the last year. Yeah.
Good news is it's the side.
The fence on the other side, that's been there for several years. When the other section looks the same to it.
What kind of approval are we considering tonight? Is it final approval, preliminary approval,
Well, because
conceptual?
it's just an accessory use, and we never explained at all to what degree you wanted to do
Okay.
this. Because pretty much it's just been roof solar.
Right.
And then I always request the anti-glare letter, especially if they're abutting 30 or somewhere where there's a hill. Washington Way does go
Uphill.
uphill towards.
Right.
But,
Good news is it has a little bit of a curve away from the property.
Right.
So it's totally up to you guys.
And one other thing, just between that system and that property, there's a row of trees at the back of Mr. Schultz's property, and then a row of trees on his side, so that's, yeah.
I make a motion to approve the application conditioned upon the anti-glare statement. I also request, but it is not a condition of the approval, that you do reach out to your neighbors as was requested,
I'll talk to him.
just for their feedback.
Is that it, Bob?
That's it.
Motion on the floor? Do we have a
don't-
second?
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor to approve the solar panels at 2799 Burt Fowler Road, conditioned as Councilperson Graham stated. All those signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. And I just get that statement to Michelle for the.
Yes.
Okay. All right, I'll get that document over to you.
Okay.
Thank you all very much.
Any other business that needs to be taken care of? Anybody in the audience need to say anything? If not, I will take a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Hold on. Oh, I think this case has brought up a couple items that need housekeeping in the code.
Yes. Notification.
I suggest we entertain a code amendment to require ground-mounted solar and/or wind generators that are ground-mounted to have notification from two adjacent properties. We need clarification that the maximum square footage will be that of Carroll County's. I know we had discussed this previously when we wrote these ordinances, but we just need to clarify that in writing. So
Yeah.
I would like to see that brought up to a future board session.
Yeah, or a work session. Yeah, I think that's a good idea, because I sure as heck would want, not that I would necessarily be adverse to them, but I'd like to know what was going on, just to be able to evaluate whether there was going to be an impact on my property.
It's consistent with what this board has done for multiple years. When applications have come in, we've requested confirmation from the adjacents that they're
Right.
aware of it, they know what's going on.
I just think that's fair to the citizens. So that's who we're looking out for.
I would also like the commission members to consider, and while it may not be a problem here, that a privacy fence be a total surrounding of the area, so it can't be viewed at all.
Privacy fence around the array.
Like if you're putting a solar panel in your backyard, he has it, it's open, so cars driving by are gonna see it. I'd like it to be blocked. I don't want anybody to have to see it. Again, just for consideration.
Potentially, yeah.
Yeah, that's something we can
Yeah.
definitely work on, because you're right, it's not covered here in 250. So,
And one more thing we're gonna be working on. I
Yep.
need you to look at your comp plans and come up with some, this is time for our 5-year progress report, I guess, for the comp plan. And, we need to schedule a work session.
yeah,
Now, I had, Jim Schumacher was going to be helping us, but now he's not able. So at this point, I don't know who's doing it, but we gotta get our
Okay.
stuff together.
I guess we figure out who, and then we should send out some dates for a work session.
Yeah.
I know it gets a little tricky now that we're getting into the summer season, but I'm sure we can find the time to work. We know Michelle won't be taking any vacation since she's been out for so long, so.
Yeah.
Okay, now I will take a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I'll make a motion, we adjourn the meeting.
Second motion.
All those signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed? Now let's do this. Meeting adjourned.